They tried for decades to divide us. Through politics, borders, media, and war, they hoped we would forget who we are. A single body, a united Ummah. But something has changed. The silence of the past has turned into a global voice. The disconnection between lands has become a bridge of solidarity. From east to west, north to south, Muslims are no longer waiting to be told who they are. They are remembering it on their own. And that remembrance is shaking the very foundation of the world order. For too long, the Muslim world was painted as broken. Headlines focused only on our failures, not our faith. Our pain was broadcast, but our strength was hidden. But now, that narrative is crumbling. The oppressed are no longer alone. The cries from Gaza, the resistance in Yemen, the pain of Kashmir, these are no longer isolated stories. They echo in every Muslim heart, no matter the flag or language. The people are not just waking up. They are standing up. Something powerful is happening in real time. The youth who were once disconnected from identity are now wearing it proudly. The scholars who were silenced are now amplified through millions of phones. The flags of nations may differ, but the cause la ilaha illallah remains the same. The Quran that guided generations is now lighting the path for a new era. Not just one of belief, but one of boldness. This new unity isn't organized by governments or driven by politics. It's rising from the ground, from the people, the pain, the purpose. It's seen in the way a teenager in London raises his voice for Gaza, or a woman in Jakarta donates all she has for a cause thousands of miles away. It's felt in the protests, the prayers, the posts, all carrying one message: we are one. And this unity, no matter how spiritual or peaceful it appears, terrifies those who built their power on our division. Because a united Muslim voice cannot be ignored. A united Muslim economy cannot be controlled. A united Muslim identity cannot be erased. The world order that once dictated the future of Muslim lands now finds itself staring at a future it cannot predict. This is not the beginning of conflict, it is the return of dignity. Not a threat of violence, but a promise of presence. The world is watching, unsure of what comes next. But we are no longer watching quietly. We are speaking, moving, building, together. Muslim unity is no longer a dream whispered in circles. It is now a reality marching through every heart that still believes. And that is more powerful than any weapon the world has ever known. There was a time when the idea of Muslim unity seemed impossible. Centuries of colonialism, foreign interference, internal corruption, and manufactured sectarianism had done their work. Muslim lands were divided not just by borders, but by ideology, politics, and mistrust. The term Ummah was often repeated in Friday sermons but rarely seen in action. Yet, despite all odds, a silent shift began to take place. Not in the halls of governments, but in the hearts of the people. The sense of belonging to a global Muslim family started to grow, especially among the youth, who were tired of watching their brothers and sisters suffer in silence. As the world grew more connected, so did the pain of the Ummah. The suffering of Palestinians was no longer distant. It could be seen live in real time on every phone screen. The cries from Syria, the resistance in Yemen, the oppression in Kashmir. These were no longer just headlines, they were personal. Muslims around the world started to feel each tragedy as their own. It wasn't politics that connected them. It was something deeper. A shared identity rooted in belief, in faith, in la ilaha illallah. And from that pain came awareness. From awareness came movement. From movement came unity. For the first time in decades, Muslims across the globe began to rise together. Whether it was protests in Western capitals or quiet prayers in small homes, a new form of resistance emerged, one of consciousness. The realization that disunity was not natural, but imposed. That our differences were never meant to be walls, but doors to understanding. Social media became a battlefield where truth was defended and falsehood exposed. Youth became the voice of the unheard, and slowly, the Ummah began to feel whole again. This unity didn't come from politics or power. It came from pain and purpose. It came from the realization that silence helps the oppressor. That neutrality in the face of injustice is betrayal. That the only way forward is together. While the world still tries to define us through their lenses, we are writing our own story, one of strength, resilience, and unwavering faith. The Ummah is not waiting anymore. It is awakening, and that awakening is powerful enough to shake the world. As this wave of unity grows stronger, something even more powerful begins to unfold: the rediscovery of identity. For years, many Muslims struggled with the question, who am I in a world that constantly tells me what not to be? In the face of stereotypes, demonization, and cultural pressures, many felt the need to hide their faith, to blend in, to avoid the label of other. But now that is changing. Across the world, young Muslims are proudly reclaiming their faith not just as a religion, but as a way of life. Not just as something personal, but something that connects them to a global family, one that stretches beyond race, nationality, or background. This rediscovery is not fueled by nationalism or political slogans. It's rooted in a return to core values, to the essence of Islam. People are no longer looking at Islam through the lens of media or misrepresentation. They're opening the Quran for themselves. They're listening to scholars who speak truth with clarity. They're connecting with history, with legacy, with purpose. And in doing so, they are realizing that their identity as Muslims is not something to suppress. It is something to honor. From schools to social platforms, from cafes to classrooms, there's a new pride emerging. Young men and women are choosing to wear their faith openly, to speak boldly, to live consciously. Modesty is no longer seen as backward, but as strength. Prayer is no longer an obligation forced, but a moment of peace embraced. The culture of shame is being replaced with a culture of knowledge, and the silence of confusion is turning into the sound of clarity. This spiritual revival is deeper than just symbolism. It's about reconnecting with purpose. Muslims are beginning to see that they are part of something greater, a legacy of justice, mercy, and truth that has shaped civilizations. And with that understanding comes responsibility. To live with dignity, to stand for justice, and to support one another. This revival is not loud, but steady, not aggressive, but unshakable. And those who once felt lost in the noise of modern identity crisis are now finding their answers in the timeless light of Islam. They're no longer asking the world to accept them. They're accepting themselves, and in doing so, they are becoming the very change the world was never ready for. As the Ummah begins to awaken and rediscover its identity, something extraordinary is happening across the political landscape. The emergence of voices that cannot be silenced. In a world dominated by power blocks and media empires, Muslims are finding the courage to speak for themselves. They're no longer waiting for permission, no longer begging to be heard. From war zones to parliaments, from university halls to street protests, a new generation is rising, informed, fearless, and rooted in truth. This shift is not just about resistance against physical occupation or foreign policies. It's a resistance of the narrative. For decades, Muslims have been spoken about, framed as problems or threats, rarely given the space to define themselves. But now that era is fading. Muslims are telling their own stories, sharing their own truths, and exposing the double standards that have long shaped global discourse. They are challenging the labels forced upon them, extremist, radical, backward, and replacing them with the reality of who they truly are, people of principle, depth, compassion, and resilience. This narrative resistance is powerful because it threatens the very foundation of oppression, silence. When voices rise with clarity and conviction, lies can't survive. When truth is spoken without fear, injustice trembles. This is exactly what we are witnessing today. Whether it's the courage of a Palestinian child standing in front of a tank, or the determination of a journalist reporting the raw truth, or a student refusing to stay silent, these voices are not isolated. They are connected, they are multiplying, and they are forcing the world to listen. What's most inspiring is that this voice isn't born from hate, it's born from hope. It's not seeking revenge, it's seeking justice. It's not divisive, it's unifying. It doesn't come from anger, but from love for the oppressed and a longing for a world that reflects divine justice. This voice, rising from the heart of the Ummah, is not a moment, it's a movement. One that refuses to be quiet, one that refuses to forget, and one that will continue to echo louder and louder until the world is forced to look in the mirror and finally reckon with the truth it has tried so hard to ignore. As global tensions continue to rise and the world order begins to shift, one thing has become undeniably clear. The days of blind dominance are over. The so-called balance of power is no longer dictated solely by Western influence. For decades, Muslim countries were treated as pawns, their resources exploited, their sovereignty undermined, and their people left to bear the cost of endless wars and foreign agendas. But today, we're witnessing something different. A new chapter is unfolding, one where Muslim nations are beginning to stand on their own terms, speak with their own voices, and refuse to play by the old rules. This awakening is not about aggression, it's about dignity. It's not about retaliation, it's about reclaiming control. The world has watched as countries like Iran, Qatar, and others assert their independent policies, challenge global hypocrisy, and demand to be treated as equals, not subordinates. Whether it's through diplomatic resistance, regional alliances, or military deterrence, these actions are sending a clear message. The Muslim world will no longer remain silent or submissive. The era of quiet compliance is over. What's more significant is that these moves are not driven by mere politics. They are deeply rooted in a historical memory of injustice. The scars of colonialism, the manipulation of borders, the funding of dictatorships, and the destruction of nations like Iraq, Libya, and Syria are not forgotten. These events have left an imprint, not of fear, but of resolve. A generation has emerged that is politically aware, historically informed, and spiritually grounded. They know what was taken, and they are determined not to let history repeat itself. This rise is not just geopolitical, it's symbolic. Every time a Muslim nation refuses to bow, it empowers others. Every act of defiance becomes a spark. The world is no longer unipolar, and the monopoly of narrative is breaking. In this new reality, Muslims are no longer just responding to the world, they are helping shape it, and that is a shift with consequences. The tables are turning, slowly, steadily. The world is starting to see that the Muslim world is not just a region to be managed, it is a force to be respected. The silence is gone, the self-doubt is fading, and the rise, though long overdue, has truly begun. Across the Muslim world, something deeply spiritual is unfolding beneath the surface of politics and power. It's not just about defiance or resistance, it's about rediscovering divine purpose. While headlines focus on missiles and sanctions, the real revolution is happening in hearts. More and more people are turning inward, reconnecting with their faith, and realizing that true strength does not only lie in armies or economies, it lies in conviction, in unity, and in unwavering belief. The Quran is being opened not just in homes but in hearts, offering clarity where confusion once lived. In a time when global systems seem to be unraveling, Islam is providing the anchor, steady, unchanging, and pure. This return to faith isn't about rituals alone, it's about understanding. People are realizing that Islam offers not just a path to worship, but a complete worldview. It speaks to justice, to truth, to dignity. And in the face of global chaos, it offers inner peace. That is why, in moments of crisis, mosques fill. In the wake of tragedy, Quranic verses are shared. In times of despair, du'as are whispered. Because at the core of every political shift, there is a spiritual yearning, a hunger to be connected to something greater than self, greater than politics, greater than this temporary world. And this spiritual shift is creating change. It's creating communities that are stronger, more compassionate, more aware. It's producing leaders who are not just strategic, but principled. It's encouraging young people to study not just sciences, but sacred knowledge. It's building a generation that doesn't just protest injustice. It understands why injustice exists in the first place. A generation that doesn't just call for change, but lives it, quietly, consistently, courageously. While the world measures progress in GDP and global influence, believers are measuring something far more powerful: the nearness to their Creator. The result, a new kind of power, one that isn't loud or flashy, but rooted in truth, one that doesn't depend on the approval of superpowers, but on obedience to one God. This spiritual revival is subtle, but it is the foundation of everything. Because no movement can last, no resistance can hold, and no nation can rise unless its soul is alive. And today, the Muslim soul is awakening. And with it, the world is beginning to change in ways no analyst could ever predict. The most powerful moments in history are not always captured by cameras or written into headlines. They often begin in silence, in the hearts of people who decide they've had enough. Today, we are living through one of those moments. While global powers scramble to maintain control and rewrite the rules to suit their interests, something far more profound is happening in the background. The Muslim world, long underestimated, long misunderstood, is awakening. But this is not the rise of tanks and soldiers alone. This is the rise of awareness of truth and of unity. There is a noticeable shift from fragmented voices to a collective roar. Across continents, Muslims are starting to recognize that they are not isolated communities scattered by borders and flags. They are one body, one ummah, and the pain of one part is felt by the whole. Whether it's a mother mourning her child in Gaza, a student marching for justice in the West, or a scholar teaching the truth in a remote village, their struggles are connected. And in that connection lies an incredible strength. This unity is not accidental. It is being forged by fire, the fire of war, occupation, betrayal, and injustice. But instead of breaking the spirit of the people, it is hardening their resolve. Instead of silencing them, it is amplifying their voice. And this voice is now echoing across the globe, demanding not just attention, but change. Demanding not just sympathy, but accountability. More than ever, Muslims are refusing to be divided by politics, by sects, by propaganda. They are returning to their source, their faith, their history, their shared values. This return is creating a common language, a shared lens through which they see the world, and a unified direction they are walking toward. And the world is beginning to notice. Because when a people become united in truth, no lie can last. When they become united in principle, no oppression can stand forever. This is not just the rise of the Muslim world. It is the rise of something much deeper. It is the rise of consciousness, of courage, and of calling, the kind that cannot be colonized, cannot be bought, and cannot be stopped. And in this rise, there is hope, not just for Muslims, but for a world desperate for justice, meaning, and truth. As the dust of global politics settles and the noise of propaganda fades, one truth becomes increasingly clear. The awakening we are witnessing is not simply a shift in power, but a return to purpose. The Muslim Ummah is rising, not just in resistance, but in clarity, in unity, and in strength that flows from deep within. It's no longer just about headlines or governments. It's about people reclaiming their dignity, rediscovering their voice, and refusing to be defined by anyone but themselves. What we are seeing is bigger than borders and deeper than alliances. It is a spiritual revival, a political reckoning, and a global transformation, all unfolding at once. And the most powerful part, it's only just beginning. The world may not be ready for it, but the Ummah is. The silence is over, the divisions are healing, and the future is being written, not in the halls of power, but in the hearts of the people. Thank you for watching. If this message moved you, inspired you, or made you reflect, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Let it reach someone who needs to hear it. And most importantly, stay aware, stay united, and never stop seeking truth. Because this moment isn't just history in the making, it's a legacy we all share.